actively passing atomic weaponry secret to the Russians. Julius and something Rosenberg, and they were executed, they were electrocuted for being spies. I mean, this is unheard of, you know? And Julius and Ethel Rosenberg, I think their names were. Mm-hmm. But the point I'm trying to make is that there was such a hullabaloo about atomic bombs and the secrets and the Russians and so forth. There was a lot of animosity, or there was a lot of thought amongst liberal people that we should have never dropped the atom bomb because it opened up Pandora's box.
Yeah.
You understand that Greek mythology? We'll look it up.
Not too well.
Well, Pandora's box.
I'll explain it.
So, I think everyone in the military, thank God that we did it. That we stopped the war with Japan. Now, George was involved with Herb York, who was one of the fathers of the atom bomb. Is that right?
Yes.
And he and George discussed this frequently after
I edited his book called Race to Oblivion, which was Herb's book on the development of the atom bomb.
Tell them what would have happened if we had attacked, if we had not dropped the atom bomb on Hiroshima and what's the other city?
Nagasaki.
I'm quizzing him.
He doesn't know.
Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Supposing we hadn't dropped the bomb, what do you think would have been the consequence of the United States invading Japan?
Elijah?
Well, think about that. If you hadn't dropped the bomb and you went in to Japan, what would have happened?
Well, we wouldn't have very many cars.
Say it again?
We wouldn't have very many good quality cars.
Like Toyota?
Don't have any more.
Good quality cars. Because like nowadays a lot of like really
Hey
good
man,
quality
don't
cars.
you give that as an answer. We'll flunk you if you do that. Well,
Sure.
my understanding is that the Japanese were going to fight to the death.
Yeah.
We didn't take a hell of a lot of Japanese prisoners during World War II because they fought to the death anyway.
Mhm.
But everyone was going to be a kamikaze pilot. Now, what's a kamikaze pilot?
A suicidal pilot.
Who that?
Suicidal bomber.
Yeah, suicidal bomber, that's right. Well, I don't know, how many thousand planes did they have ready to be suicide bombers against the fleet of the Armada that was going to attack? They had bunkers all over Japan. And estimates would, what was the estimate as how many men we would have lost?
I don't remember.
Hundreds of thousands. So there's just no question
Wow.
that was the only thing to do to end the war, because they weren't going to give up.
No.
And even then, it was about a week or so, the first bomb went off and they really didn't quite get the picture, and then the second bomb went off and they finally got the picture. And that's when they capitulated. And did you ever see those pictures of the battleship where the surrender was? All these Japanese came in formal hats, top hats and tails. And here MacArthur was with an open shirt, sitting there. I don't know, he didn't have a cigar or anything, but that's where the truce came. And there's a contrast.
On board the Missouri.
Pardon? It was on the battleship Missouri.
Yes.
But the contrast, this is the contrast. Eisenhower kept everything intact. The police, the army, the king, the emperor, parliament, everything was intact. He didn't change the government.
MacArthur did.
MacArthur didn't. Not the way they did when they took Iraq.
Mm-hmm.
When our troops took Iraq, they tore down everything. The Ba'ath Party? Yeah, the Ba'ath Party that ran sort of like the Nazis in Germany. It was like the Ba'ath Party in Iraq. They tore it all down, so there wasn't anything to keep the peace or keep the country running. It was stupid. I mean, if they kept the army and said, look, you guys, we're going to look for weapons of mass destruction to get the hell out of here. You keep the peace. You can keep your army. You can have your government just the way you want it. we're not gonna disturb the government because we want everything the same. And we would have been out of there by now. And the same thing happened in Europe. When the Allies took over from the Nazis, Patton kept all the Nazis in. He said, how am I gonna get electricity and gas and plumbing, and how am I gonna keep this country running, the area that he was in,
Yeah.
if I don't have the people? I don't care what party they're in. Well, anyway, so there's the analogy that how smart MacArthur was to keep things the way they were and to not change the country. Huh? And to hell with democracy, you know? No.
No, he didn't leave out the, actually, he brought in the chrysanthemum and the sword, the great books, American books that had been done on Japan and how it was run. And MacArthur's office operated out of the American studies of Japanese society. So it was an extraordinarily intelligent takeover from the best scholars that we had about Japan.
MacArthur was very much disliked during the World War II. He was imperious. He was, am I saying, you think
Yes.
that's right? And this is the way it's going to be. And he couldn't. The Navy didn't like him because he favored the Army, and the Army didn't like the Navy because the Navy was. So he really had a tough job, but by God, he did it. And he's a much maligned commander, general, but he was good. He did some great things during World War II and during the Korean War. His only problem was trying to go up to the north and, you know, he threatened the Chinese. You know, they're up there on the border. Every houseboy in Korea knew that the Chinese were ready to come over the border. Eisenhower didn't, MacArthur didn't know. I mean, he had lousy intelligence. All the houseboys knew there was, you know, the kids, the Korean kids that are around. Oh, General, they've got lots of Chinese, they go up there. So that was his big mistake. If he'd stopped at Pyongyang, that's where the peninsula, North Korea, gets very narrow. It's only, what, about 100 miles across, something like that. Pyongyang is the capital of North Korea. If he'd formed a line there, there's nothing much north of that. Well, anyway. What do you think, Elijah? You're taking notes there, aren't you? You writing?
You've got pages.
Yeah.
Good for you. Well, you guys doing a good job. We enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, you wanted to get